this. On a discussion recently, I asked uh, how you felt this class and the other micro and physiology, the prereq classes for the nursing program, were preparing you for entry into the nursing program. And specifically in comparison to a face-to-face class. And most of the people, did you read it? Most of the people uh, would prefer a face-to-face class, of course. They're concerned whether this class will even count. It will count. 2 years ago, we didn't offer this class online because the state wasn't accepting it, but with the pandemic, they really had no choice. And uh, I've been giving you the same questions, the same test, so slightly modified, always customized. And I have found that the online uh, responses are better than the regular fall or spring semester. They're not as good as the normal summer semester if I'm comparing spring to summer. Now you're in summer, of course, and so comparing summer to summer, I'll be able to do, let's say, year-to-year basis. But they do seem to be getting the information across. Okay? You may not like it, but we have no choice right now. They want to bring this back to face-to-face. Okay? I think I have read into everybody's comments, and almost all, but not all, but almost all, want face to face. In other words, a live class. But I look at the screen here, and mostly what I see are black placards with your name. You don't want face to face, you want to hide. Okay. Unfortunately, maybe you didn't want to get up, didn't want to get made up, didn't want to get dressed. I can understand that. I feel the same way, but I have to do it to what degree I can. Uh, and the uh, the problem is going to be, and I've told you this slightly once before, but I gotta repeat it. The problem's going to come down. Push comes to shove when you ask me for a recommendation. And I say, sure, I'll write you a recommendation. I'll do the best I can. But then the nursing school or the nursing program or the statewide agency that collects these applications, typical questions are: one, how's their oral communication? They want an answer to that. And for over half of the people in this class, I haven't heard a word. And for the same half, I probably haven't even seen what they look like, except once in a while when they accidentally uh, turned it on, the video that is. I'll also get asked, how is their congeniality? I can get a little bit of that for a couple of people just by reading your chat. But for most people, I have no idea how congenial you are, okay, how you interact with the other students. That's another question that they'll want to know. Are you a group leader? Well, that's kind of hard to be in a situation like this. I give you the best recommendation I can, but when it comes to those questions, it's going to be unable to observe. Okay? Now you can change that, but that's 3 weeks. All you have to do is ask a couple of questions. Uh, show your face, if you don't mind, a couple of times. Oh, I see your little profiles every time I go in and read the discussion boards or look at the people who are in the class. And that's okay. But I like to know who my students are. Uh, it just feels a little bit more congenial, as I say. Okay. I know you're on the social internet. I can find you anytime, and you're there. I know what, oh, Mike Suarez, wherever you are, there you are. Yeah, uh, your high school, what the sports you're in, and why you say you have a soft back. I don't believe it. Okay. So in any event, what I'm saying is, I'd like you to think about making an attempt to show yourself, not today, okay? Uh, Tomorrow, possibly, or once during each of the 3 remaining weeks. That's all. Okay. I don't mind, in case you're wondering. What if I have to get up to go to the bathroom? Get up and go. Okay. What if I want to get up and take care of my kids? They're yelling in the background. Black screen me. Okay. At that point. Okay. Just take care of business. But when you can and you feel like it, I like to look at people. Okay. Otherwise, how would we do if I just go like that and we all black screen it? I think they call it radio. Okay. Or CB in the old days. That's not so good. Okay. Well, I'm not doing that. Okay. Any questions, comments?
Do we really only have 3 weeks left?
After this, after tomorrow.
It went so fast.
It goes very fast. Don't let up. That's my best advice. Don't let up now. Okay. It gets a little bit more intense all of a sudden, but I know you can handle it. You're going to do fine. But if you let up, no, it's over. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Okay. We've got plenty of people. Go to the shared screen then. If you don't have another question right now, uh, well, let me throw out some possible questions or topics. Any question about the test on Monday? The information of what's going to be on the test is posted on the module. Okay. But any other question that you have? Think about it tonight and bring them with you if you have them again then tomorrow. Okay. You're seeing week 5?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And I think I shuffled the order a little bit, not for what we've already done, but for what we're going to do. We did the urinary system yesterday, and in lab we looked at for the first time the ear, brain, eye, and heart. We're going to see the heart so many times. The recording for yesterday is up, okay, and today we're going to start with the circulatory system for lecture. Okay, the functions of the circulatory system, that's your heart and all your vessels. One is to distribute oxygen to the body and deliver carbon dioxide to the lungs for removal. That's pretty much what you learn in first grade. And so you breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. But there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. We also distribute nutrients. When we absorb nutrients from the digestive system, They have to travel throughout the body. Okay. So the nutrients are delivered and the wastes are taken away to the kidneys and the lungs. The lungs are an organ of disposal as well as gas exchange. For instance, if you were to eat garlic on a pizza or whatever, or just eat pizza the night before, uh, somebody may be able to smell your breath because of the garlic odor coming away from the lungs. So it's expelling things as well. The circulatory system also distributes the hormones that are produced by the endocrine glands throughout the entire body. The body's temperature can be regulated in part by the circulatory system. If the body needs to cool off, the blood is diverted to vessels that are closer to the body's surface. If the body needs to stay warm, the vessels that are closer to the core are utilized more heavily. A function of the blood is always listed as clotting. Well, yeah, that sort of rubs me wrong, but it's one of our 6 answers. Clotting seems to be a repair job on the system itself.
Wait, Charlie.
Yes,
So that's interesting. So you're saying the blood or the circulatory system draws blood to the center of the body if it's trying to warm up, and then if it's cooling down, it draws the blood outwards.
yes.
Huh.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying it leaves the other area without blood. No, there's blood throughout all of the vessels of the body, but more of it will be directed to the deeper vessels if you're trying to conserve heat. Have you ever noticed on a cold day your skin turns color?
Well, I notice when I'm warm or something, someone would like touch my arm or something, and they would say that it's like warm. Like I remember that, but yeah.
Or like when you're sweating and working out and your face looks blushed.
Yes.
So then like there's more blood on the surface. And then if on a cold day your fingertips are a lot colder.
Right.
And so to keep the
Yeah.
the rest of your body warm.
Yeah, you're a lighter color when it's colder outside. I have I told you guys, never discuss health in finance, in any sort of business setting anyway. Of course you do with your doctors. Of course you do with your family and maybe your closest friend, but I wouldn't even do that unless it's necessary. But so I break my own rule, however, because for the sake of the class, I can have something I can contribute just to a small degree. Something called peripheral neuropathy. Uh, I've seen commercials on television about peripheral neuropathy recently. Before a couple months ago, there weren't any. Well, somebody's trying to make a buck. Somebody wants you to come in and get treated for it. There's no treatment for it. My God, what is peripheral neuropathy? Well, peripheral to the outside or extreme. Neuropathy, neuro meaning nerves, okay, and pathy usually means something undesirable anyway, okay. I developed coldness in my arms and my fingers and even across my chest. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. I went to a neurologist and the guy said, can't do anything. After hitting me with a cattle prod probably 50 times, jolting me and everything, he says, can't do anything for you. Try some capsaicin. That's a ointment that heats things up. And I did, and it worked. And but for all that prodding that I had is horrible. But the good thing that's come out of it is I don't need air conditioning anymore. I am always cool. Okay. In the winter, I can be cold, damn right cold, but I can always get a jacket or a sweater or something. Uh, and it's not life threatening at all. So,
Now, Charlie, and you said it comes and goes. Does that mean that it acts up during a certain like time, like if it's cold?
I haven't thought about it. I know that at night my hands will be sometimes cold, and then 10 minutes later, they're not. It does just come and go. Uh, it's, I don't know. I don't even think about it much anymore, except for right now. Okay. It used to bother me a lot. And, I have a doctor. Uh, Maybe you don't have a regular doctor yet. You're going to live long enough.
Yeah, because I feel like my mom has it, and she's like pushing 50.
Yeah.
Charlie, you said it's just in your hands too that you get it?
Usually people get it in their feet. I only get it in my hands and forearms.
Yeah, I think my
like,
mom gets it in her
my mom
elbows.
has that, and like it'll be like just like everyone will be like not hot, but just like normal temperature, and his hands will be like almost like numb, like freezing, sort of.
I have people touch my hand, and they say it feels normal. It feels normal to them, but to me, I'm cold. And like I said, in the summer months, that's great. It's great. I don't like the heat when we really have to turn on air conditioning and stuff. Okay. Anyway, uh, back to our list. I left off at clotting. Okay. We want clotting that seals a break in the circulatory system. We don't, of course, want clotting that clogs the circulatory system, like you might get if you were riding on a long airplane flight and a clot developed and ended up into your lungs or your heart. The blood also is our main way, the circulatory system, our main way to fight infection. Okay. The components of the circulatory system. The first one is the heart. We went over the heart yesterday. We are going over it again. I'm not leaving you with half the material or unprepared. But we're not going to discuss it anymore today. We're just listing it. Heart is one. The second thing that is a component of the circulatory system are the arteries. People get this wrong all the time. Arteries, these are vessels that carry blood away from the heart and towards capillaries. Capillaries are the smallest vessels where gas and nutrient exchange can take place. Arteries always travel away from the heart towards capillaries. You're going to find that once the blood has passed by the group of capillaries that the artery took it to, it will then enter the venous system, the veins. There are a couple of types of arteries. The first is the muscular artery. Lives up to its name, but it's not real big and sturdy, but it's got a muscular layer within it. And that muscular layer contracts, pulses, and that pulsation that it has propels the blood forward. It can't propel it backwards, which would be towards the heart, because the system of valves we discussed yesterday prevent blood that leaves the heart from going back into the heart immediately. Instead, more blood enters, and the previous blood is pushed along. The muscular arteries, the muscle portion of these, helps to move the blood along. A muscular artery has three main parts, and they're drawn below for you. Okay. The first is the outer layer. We'll just look at this one right here, the one on the left, the larger one. Nope, I don't want to look at that. I'm sorry. We'll look at the middle one. This is the muscular artery. There's an outer layer. It's called the tunica externa. Tunic for layer, externa for outside. Nothing hard about that. The next layer is this one, and this is the tunica media right here. The tunica media is circular, smooth muscle. Now, when I say smooth muscle, I want to sort of drill it in that that's also visceral muscle. Same thing. I've looked over the test that you're going to get on Monday, and I have switched a couple of times between visceral and smooth muscle to see that you understand that it's two names that are still in great use, and you need to know them both. Okay, tunica externa, fine. Tunica media, this is the muscular layer. Imagine it like you're looking at an eye. No, blink, squeeze, blink, open, close, open, close. That'll push the blood because it's going to put pressure on the blood. But the blood can only go in one direction, that's forward, towards the capillaries. The inside layer is very thin and dark here. This is the tunica intima. Okay. It has another name, but I'll be using tunica intima. The other name makes sense though, tunica interna. Okay. And it's listed for you up here. This is a thin inner lining of the lumen of the vessel. Most of the vessels that are arteries in the body are muscular arteries. Okay. Now we have some larger arteries. This is an elastic artery down here. There aren't as many of these, but these are quite powerful. They're big. They have a large muscular layer. So they do have a tunica externa out here. They have a tunica media in here. And they have the tunica intima. So there's no change in the nomenclature or the naming here. Okay. We look at the diameter. These are usually like the aorta, the brachiocephalic artery and vein, the vena cava, the vessels that are near the heart. Now, the vena cava is not an artery, so we have to remove it from the discussion, but we can leave in the pulmonary trunk, okay, and even the pulmonary arteries, the aortic arch, the aorta itself, okay, and it's thick. These are so thick that blood passing through the aorta, for example, cannot reach into the center of the thick wall to nourish the vessel itself. The vessel has to be nourished as well. It's living tissue. With the smaller muscular artery, the blood is able to move and deliver oxygen and nutrients and take up waste and then go back in the circulation. Okay. But over here, it can't by itself. Instead, what happens over here in the elastic artery is that there's a series of blood vessels inside the tunica media. They're shown as blue here, has nothing to do with anything, the color doesn't. Just means that the blood is getting in there. The gases and things are not diffusing or osmosing. Okay? They are actually going through channels. That set of vessels within the wall of the elastic artery is called the vasa vasorum. Yeah, there it is. The vasa vasorum. Don't confuse this with the vasa recta that we saw yesterday. That was the capillary network around the loop of Henle. The vasa vasorum is the circulatory system within the circulatory system. Far fewer elastic arteries. But when these contract circumferentially around, when they contract, they really force the blood or propel it forward. And then the vessels get smaller, become the muscular arteries. A very small vessel might look like this last one over here, but it's still, if it's an artery, it will have the tunica externa, tunica intima, and the tunica media.
So Charlie, I just have a question for you.
Yeah.
So the difference in the arteries mainly has to do with the amount of blood that it can push versus the size in the center, because the size in the center doesn't go up to as much as I thought it would. It's more just the how much it can push, the volume of blood.
Right. I think you're right. I think somebody took artistic license here, okay? Because I would prefer to see this larger. When I draw it on chalkboard, and I love a chalkboard, a marker board and I just don't get along. But when I would draw it, I would draw it much larger. So if you can, in your mind's eye, just enlarge that. We're going to see vessels a little further on today, and you'll see the size difference. The third thing, okay, what was the first and second? Backing up, heart and arteries. Okay. The third thing are arterioles. These are the smaller arteries. An artery is to deliver blood someplace. An arteriole is a smaller vessel that once the organ that is being serviced has been reached, the vessel goes inside. For instance, the vessel might go inside of the kidney. The vessel might go inside of the salivary gland. Anything that you can think of. Once the artery is not visible in the chambers, in the spaces, in the abdominal pelvic cavity, but has entered into an organ, it's properly called an arteriole. Okay. So we have the heart pumping blood to arteries. We could follow the arteries in the specimen, whatever we have, a man, a woman, a cat, doesn't matter. We can follow these. We can see these vessels. They are arteries. But once they dive into something like the spleen or into the stomach, they are arterioles. And you will find exceptions to the rule. it's not a good, it's not an often obeyed rule. When we look at the kidney yesterday, you'll find the term arteriole and artery, unfortunately, being used rather indiscriminately. But when I ask you what an arteriole is, it is an arterial vessel that has entered an organ. And then when it gets in there, it's bringing with it all the nutrients and oxygen and hormones and other things, and it's going to exchange them at capillaries. These are the smallest vessels. Now, the capillaries are neither arteries or arterioles, or which is going to follow, venules or veins. These are the in between. These are the spots where the exchange is going to take place. They're the site of gas and nutrient exchange. Thin-walled vessels, and they only have a tunica intima. There is no muscle around it, no tunica media, and no encapsulation by a tunica externa. They must be very, very, flimsy might be a word, but very thin and very fragile. And they are. But the capillaries are the site of exchange. When the blood passes through the capillaries, it passes through slowly. It has to. It's slowed down because the capillaries are small in diameter, allowing only one red blood cell or white blood cell to pass through at a time. It really slows things down. I know we've all been in lines like that. Once through, the vessels get larger again, and they're known as venules when they are located within the organ still. Arterioles, capillaries, and venules are inside of the organ. Once these emerge from the organ, they'll be in veins. And the vein always, this is another one, if you're printing these out to copy and underline. Veins carry blood away from capillaries and towards the heart. A vein has valves. Arteries usually don't have valves. Well, the aorta has a valve, the aortic semilunar valve, we saw that one, stopping blood flowing backwards. But the veins are known for having valves. And once the blood pushes or is pushed past a valve, it can't come back. It can't come back. So as more blood keeps coming out of the capillaries into the veins, the previous blood is pushed forward. It can't come back. So it's like ratcheting something. You push it forward a little bit, push it forward more, but you never let it come back. So it's on its way back to the heart, okay? And it needs a little bit of help. The vein is thinner walled. It has very little tunica media. It has very little muscle. So how is it going to get the blood under pressure, push it forward? It won't push it back because the valves are there. The best way is for a vein in an artery to run side by side, like put two fingers together, have them run side by side. One's a vein, one's an artery. The artery thumps, pulses because of the tunica media. It enlarges, it contracts. The artery pushes, the muscular artery pushes the blood forward. But in so doing and enlarging, it disturbs the vein right next to it, puts pressure on the vein, and the blood that's in the vein, and it must go forward. It sends the blood back towards the heart. That's why you always find veins and arteries. Well, I can't say always, but usually you'll find veins and arteries side by side. The artery is doing the work for both, pushing on the veins. Sometimes people get varicose veins, usually behind the knee, but other places as well. And that's because they're often in a sedentary job, but especially a standing job, like a cashier or something that doesn't get to move around very much. And the blood pools in the veins and stretches the valves. Blood can't go backwards, but it can stretch the valves and pool. And then we have the appearance of vessels that are purple. Okay, we're back to veins. Now we have the formed elements of the blood. The formed elements. The formed elements are those that in drawn blood we can see under the microscope. A red blood cell is the best example of a formed element. The formation takes place in the bone marrow for the most part, and these are known, of course, as red blood cells or erythrocytes. Red blood cells are non-nucleate. We say enucleate. They don't have a nucleus, and they're not going to be able to divide. They have a 120-day run, and then they die. And then we have phagocytosis by other cells and such to take care of their remains. They're biconcave, like a mint tablet that is concave on both sides. I know you've all seen them, okay? And they're about 7 micrometers in diameter. If you don't know what a micrometer is, it's not going to be necessary in this course. When you get to microbiology, it'll be quite necessary. Red blood cells are destroyed primarily in the spleen and in the liver, but they're replenished by the bone marrow. We lose red blood cells at the rate of 3 million a second. It's an unimaginable number. But to not become anemic, we have to replace with 3 million red blood cells per second. That's 6 million things happening per second. And that's not counting the rest of the body. Sometimes it keeps me awake at night thinking about that. We also have white blood cells. White blood cells are formed elements. These do have a nucleus and they have different functions. There are normally not as many white blood cells as red blood cells, and often they increase in numbers when something that they're supposed to take care of comes along. We'll see that in a second. White blood cells, I have a picture for you, are broken into granulocytes because they have granules visible under the microscope. Granules are usually things called histones. Okay. They all have visible granules in the cytoplasm if they're granulocytes. Here are the 3 granulocytes. Okay. Bear with me that I'm just talking text here. The picture is going to come in a second, then we'll come back. Neutrophils. Neutrophils are multi-lobed, and they act as the primary defense against bacterial infection in the body. If we do get an infection, they'll do a blood count, and a high number of neutrophils is sort of the icing on the cake that you do have an infection. Doesn't localize it, but definitely finds it. Eosinophils, these are bilobed, and they combat parasitic infections such as worms in the blood. A lot of people around here would say, well, nobody in California gets worms. They sure do. Okay. Did you ever eat mud pies? That was a treat for us kids in LA. Mud pies and worm infections. It has a bilobe nucleus. There's a commercial on television right now. I don't know if you watch any TV. Uh, Probably more time on your phone than on television. But it shows eosinophils floating around. And when you look, they've got a blue nucleus with 2 lobes. Okay. They at least got that right. Okay, so this first one, neutrophil, fights infection of bacterial nature. Eosinophil fights true parasites such as worms or anything else that gets into the blood. The basophil also has a strange nucleus, swollen at both ends. It's elongated, swollen at both ends and in the center. You're not to worry about this one. It's the rarest. You'll never see it. I haven't got a picture of it. I go onto the internet to get a picture and you don't find anything worth showing. But the basophil combats allergens. So if you're a hay fever person and the allergen reaches you, these basophils go to town, releasing histones, multiplying, and unfortunately, they seem to make the matter worse. Agranulocytes. These do not have the cytoplasmic granules. That's all there is to it. There's 2 types. The largest of the white blood cells is the monocyte, with a single nucleus that almost fills up the entire cell. They combat chronic diseases such as malaria and tuberculosis. Chronic, just in case there's somebody who doesn't know the word chronic, recurring. Recurring does not mean severe, just means it keeps coming back. Lymphocytes are the smallest of the white blood cells. So we have the largest and the smallest in the group agranulocytes. They have a nucleus, one, that completely fills the cell. They are all around cleanup cells. They devour bacteria, debris, dead red blood cells, anything that's not supposed to be there. So now let's look at them. The red blood cells themselves are shown in this pane. Okay. Nothing special, but you can definitely see there's no nucleus in there. Okay. They're about 7 micrometers across. They're biconcave. That means they're going to be thinner in the center because you're going to sort of scoop out some from each side. The biconcave nature of the erythrocyte turns out to be the best configuration for absorption and delivering of material. Greatest amount of surface area for the space used. The eosinophil has two lobes. Two lobes. The eosinophil combats parasites. And you can probably see it, that it has little granules in the cytoplasm. Sometimes they don't show, but here it does. That's the eosinophil. Here's the neutrophil down here with multi-lobes. The neutrophil is our basic defense against bacteria, and it has granules in its cytoplasm as well. The basophil is not shown. As I said, it's the rarest. You and I are not going to see it, except maybe with somebody else's picture, but it's not here. The reason they call these granulocytic is the granules. This is a granulocytic neutrophil. This is a granulocytic eosinophil. And if we had it, we'd have a granulocytic basophil. Here is the lymphocyte. This is agranulocytic. It does not have granules. The nucleus looks like it fills up everything. Actually, it doesn't. If you think of Mars with an ice cap on it someplace, and as it spins around, it shows once in a while. Okay. There is a clear area, small, but a clear area of cytoplasm on one side or other of the lymphocyte. The lymphocyte is not much bigger, usually about the same size as the red blood cell. The monocyte, okay, this one shows some cytoplasm, one large nucleus, and the size compared to a red blood cell, much larger than a red blood cell. The monocyte increases in number when we have a chronic disease. We've never come across a basophil in the classroom, and that's discouraging. There's always somebody when you're at the hospital that comes around, usually in the morning, and draws your blood, and they go off. They're the phlebotomist, and they are able to look through the microscope, and with a little hand counter with 5 buttons, once for each of the types of white blood cells, they look through the microscope and they punch every time. You see the first one, or the second, or the third one, and you get a percentage. And from that, the doctor concludes that you have an infection, or you don't, or what. Another type of formed element, the last time, red blood cells, white blood cells, and now thrombocytes. Thrombocytes are platelets. Okay, these are cellular fragments, and they contain a lot of a chemical called fibrinogen. Gen means to produce something. And what are you a fibrinogen going to produce? Fibrin. If you're wounded, fibrin is released from these thrombocytes, and they're also known as platelets, and they begin to bond together to form a clot. You've got to have a combination of air. There has to be a wound that allows air in, and you need to have the platelets in there as well before bonding can occur. So thrombocytes are not living. Thrombocytes have to be replaced constantly, just like the red blood cells do. Now, non-formed elements, this is the 8th thing and final. Non-formed elements. The formed elements are those we can see under the microscope. We can see platelets, we can see some thrombocytes, we can see the white and red blood cells. Okay, but we can't see something if it's just a pure liquid. And in the non-formed element group, this is the fluid portion of the blood. We call it plasma when all of the formed elements have been removed. In other words, using a sieve or a centrifuge, we take out the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the thrombocytes. And the fluid that we are left is plasma. In the kidney yesterday, the glomerulus, a set of capillaries, under pressure, squeezes out plasma, not red blood cells. Okay, it's not supposed to squeeze out red blood cells. If it does, you have a kidney problem. But it squeezes out plasma. Plasma still has in it the fibrinogen, the clotting agent. So we need to be careful with this if we are drawing blood, collecting blood for use, and because it can still clot. If we remove the fibrinogen as well, which takes greater centrifugation, it's more expensive to do, we can collect the resulting fluid, and that is serum. The plural of serum is sera, S-E-R-A. And this can be stored the longest. Of course, when they call for blood, a lot of people can't give blood. Okay. Why? What are some of the reasons that people can't give blood?
Tattoos.
Tattoos. I know if they're recent, you can't give blood. I don't know if there's a time limit on tattoos. Anybody?
7 years.
7 years?
Yeah.
Oh God. I'm just thinking, well, I'm not going to have any tattoos anyway. But people who get tattoos probably can't stand to not have a new one within 7 years. Okay, tattoos is one reason you can't give blood. What else?
Low iron.
Low iron, you're anemic, exactly. What else?
Traveling internationally.
Traveling internationally to areas where, for instance, malaria might be found. Okay, Panama, for instance. Okay, that's true. Any other reason that you couldn't
Maybe
give
you
blood?
might have a transmittable disease.
Oh yeah, if you have a transmittable disease and they can see it, they don't want you. They don't want you. Any other reason? I had one in mind now. I don't know if I still do or
Maybe
not.
dehydration.
Oh no, you can come back later. You can come back later. Medication. Okay, some people take medication that would drive other people crazy. Okay, because that medication is meant to stop them from being not crazy necessarily, but acting rather abnormally. So medications have to be looked at as well. So it seems like a great percentage of the population can't give blood, and yet it's something that we're always looking for and needing. In terms of storage of the blood, whole blood stores for the least amount of time. Plasma, longer. Serum, the longest. But most of the blood, unfortunately, that is collected is discarded. It gets too old. Well, is that good or bad? We needed to have it on hand just in case, like an insurance policy. But it's too bad we have to toss it away when we didn't need it. And now we have to go out and beg again to get some more. Best thing, reason to, one of the best reasons to collect blood is to collect blood for yourself. If you're going to be having an operation, get the blood for yourself. it'll reduce the cost and certainly have fewer side effects. Okay. Important terms: systemic circulation. That's from the heart, aorta, into the artery, arteriole, capillary, back to the venule, the vein, vena cava, and heart. That's essentially the one we were outlining just a moment ago. Pulmonary circulation. You start at the heart, and remember the pulmonary trunk from yesterday, I hope, and then go to the lungs for gas exchange, and then to the pulmonary veins, and back to the heart. Fetal circulation, we'll be talking about possibly tomorrow. Fetal circulation, that's the pathway of the circulatory system in the fetus. Okay? And to be discussed later, it definitely means tomorrow. Hepatic portal system. I think I resisted learning this when back in my day. I didn't like it, and now it's just so important. Okay. Hepatic portal system. Material is taken up in the lamina propria of the small intestine. You recall the villus with the microvilli layer, the lamina propria inside, and the lamina propria takes up the nutrients. They don't go back into general circulation yet, or into general circulation yet. They first go to the heart, to the liver, by the hepatic portal vein. They go to the liver to be detoxified. They meaning the blood. And after leaving the liver, they'll go by way of the inferior vena cava to the heart. Okay, any questions? Now, that particular lecture has a lot of terms that are really important for your test. The one thing it doesn't have is a bunch of pictures that are nice to look at. I don't think it was actually necessary, however, and the next portion today will have its share of pictures. Okay. If you don't have a question, go ahead and take a break if you would till quarter after. Okay. And I'll see you in a moment. Okay,
Hey, Charlie.
thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go right back to it and just save myself asking if you have any questions. Okay, what we're looking at right now, and I'm trusting that you can see this, uh, for today, 7-7, vessels above the diaphragm. So we've been talking around the heart. We're coming back to the heart, don't worry. Fetal circulation is scheduled for tomorrow. Heart scheduled for tomorrow. But vessels above and below the diaphragm. We may not do below today, but we'll do at least the above and see how much time we have. As you can see, these vessels are on the cat. And this is a diagram that has been floated around Saddleback College for 20 years at least and served us well. If I were to compare this to human mapping of the circulatory system, it would be almost identical. These are veins that we're looking at to start with, and it would be identical. We're just exactly the same. Okay. Structures that are in bold-faced type, those are the ones you may be asked to identify. Can you learn from a picture or a diagram? Not just that. Can you learn from a photograph? I think so. It's pretty much the same thing as actually being there. It's a lot less greasy to do it this way. We get people in that, oh yeah, I want to do the cat. And after 30 minutes, they don't ever want to see a cat again. Okay. So we're going to start here with the venous system. Why with the venous system? Normally it's because it has vessels that are fairly brilliant blue. We can see them fairly easily compared to the arterial system, which is sort of a pinkish color. Okay, starting at the heart, the vessel extending downward or posteriorly is the inferior vena cava. Now you have to remember that when we follow this map of vessels, I move away from the heart and everything gets smaller. But in reality, since these are veins, the blood within them is moving towards the heart, joining and getting larger and coming back as the two vena cava. Here's the inferior vena cava, and here's the superior vena cava. The superior vena cava extends from the top of the heart to the breaking or branching further on. Halfway up the vena cava, the superior vena cava, there should be a vessel. This one comes directly out at you, the viewer, and then it will split in two. That's not shown, and go to the right and to the left chest area. This is the mammary vein. Sometimes in dissection, you find that somebody's cut it too close, and all you see is a scar left. But when we ask the question on an exam in the face-to-face class or even here, you'll be able to see the attachment. This is the memory. Vertebral veins can come in from underneath, usually, the superior vena cava, bringing blood from the back. They can also attach, that's not shown, to the brachiocephalic vein on either side. Let's don't jump ahead. Let's just review quickly. Inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, mammary, and vertebrals coming from the back. There's one more vessel. As soon as the blood reaches the heart, here it's joined from this vessel. This is the azygos. If you were to look at the azygos going away, it goes down, then follows the backbone of the cat. Very eerie looking vessel. You'll have ample opportunity to see the actual thing. The brachiocephalic, or plural brachiocephalics, curve away right and left from the superior vena cava. They only go this far, from here to here, here to here. Brachiocephalic means arm and head. So some of the rest of this is going to go out to the arm, and more is going to go up to the head. Following the brachiocephalic, and we're going backwards to this split right here, where we have our choice of going to the arm or the head. We'll go to the head. Go straight up, and this long vessel is the external jugular vein on either side. It's a mirror image up here. It's symmetrical on both sides. This is the external jugular. Going across the trachea, we may find the internal jugular. I know it's present in the pictures that are coming up for you, but on many cats, it doesn't inflate when the latex, which is the blue and red coloring, is injected. Here's the internal jugular, and here as well. Go on up to the top of the external jugular, and we come to an intersection. Turning laterally, we come to the maxillary vein. Going straight ahead approximately is the linguofacial, sometimes just called the facial vein. And going across to the other side is the transverse jugular. These really are quite easy. I've got a couple of good pictures of it to show you in just a second. Back up, go a little farther to the brachiocephalic, finish it, start up the external jugular. That's this one, but just start up. And now we have the vessel that's going towards the back. It's going over the shoulder. This is the transverse scapular. It has the longest name, but it's not hard to remember. Transverse across the scapula. Come back to this point at the end of the brachiocephalic. And now we've done everything up above. We're going to go out. And this first part here is the subclavian. It's marked over on this side. The subclavian can be fairly long, like it's shown right here, or it can be short. What determines its length is when and where is the next branch. The next branch is the subscapular. Transverse scapular goes to the back of the scapula. Subscapular goes to the subscapular fossa. Sometimes this is very short and starts way back here, in which case the subclavian, which was all of this, now is just a tiny fraction of itself. I like to put a probe if I have a real cat right here. Touch it. I'm doing the transverse scapular. Now I'm doing the external jugular. Now I'm doing the subclavian. Now I'm doing the subscapular. After the subscapular, everything is brachial. Okay. For the rest of the way down, we just call it brachial. When it's your first time going through, it's bound to be harder, but people latch onto this stuff actually pretty easily. Okay. The names of the vessels that I want you to know, it's all written out here. Okay. They're in boldface type. There's nothing here that I didn't just say, so I'm not going to read it to you again, but please, you read it as you're going through this. The next drawing is for you to print out if you care to, so that you can practice labeling it. It's just a blank copy. Above the diaphragm, down here, above the diaphragm, we're going to look now at the arteries. Here's the heart, and here's the aortic arch. The aortic arch is here. Now that aortic arch is bending, and it's going down, and it comes out below the heart. This is the descending thoracic aorta. Descending, still in the thorax, aorta. But once it crosses the diaphragm, it is the abdominal aorta. Very easy to spot and to see. It's one of those ones on the test that you just hope for. You want to see it. Now, here is a difference between the cat and the human. Okay. Cat and the sheep as well. Most of these vessels are named for their location or where they're going to. The first vessel off of the ascending aorta is the brachiocephalic. It was yesterday as well. There is no common carotid. So our A, B, C's don't work. And then the next one is the subclavian on the left side. That's back to normal. Okay, normal. Well, this cat is normal. Let's go up the brachiocephalic side. There's not two brachiocephalic arteries. There were two brachiocephalic veins, but only one brachiocephalic artery. And this vessel comes off, and this vessel comes off before it ends right here. What are these two vessels? Well, we'll follow them up. This is the common carotid. Okay. This is the common carotid for the right side. The common carotids go up, go laterally to the maxillary, and medially to the facial. There is no transverse facial as there was with the veins. That's true of humans as well. The only difference between this and the model that we looked at is that this structure here, the common carotid for the left side, was down here for its start. It's just moved up slightly.
I'm sorry, Charlie, you said there was no transverse what? Like there was a vein, but not an artery?
There was a transverse facial vein or transverse jugular vein. They're both the same structure, different names, but we had it in the veins, but there's no vessel across here from right to left. All right.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I don't want you to worry about these two or these two right now. Okay. I find that jumping to them causes confusion, whereas if I wait till we're a little farther on, it's a lot better. So we're going to go out now into the arm. And after we pass the brachiocephalic, which is here to here, we have the subclavian again, just like in the veins. This is subclavian. And then going out, this is the transverse scapular. This transverse scapular artery goes out over the shoulder blade and meets the transverse scapular vein. And if you recall from just a moment ago, the transverse scapular vein comes off of the external jugular and comes this way. But they do meet. It comes this way. This is the transverse scapular artery. And then that's followed by what we call, we only have it in the arterial system, the axillary artery. The axillary artery, axillary refers to the axilla or the axillary border of the scapula. The axilla is the armpit. This is at the armpit of the cat. We're going out into the arm. We're passing by the ribs right at this point too. And we have another vessel. We only worry about different names when we pass another vessel. This vessel is the subscapular again, and it's labeled over here. So if we go over to the other side, here's the subscapular. Anything past the subscapular is brachial. Said that for the veins, now we say it for the arm. Over here, brachial. These are the major arteries and veins, and we can see them when we have the specimen open. When we can't see them, they have gone inside of an organ and become arterioles and venules. But while they're out here in the open and we can tease them out with a probe, these are arteries and veins. And I'm not going to dwell on this right now because I have photos to show you. Here's the text that goes with it. Everything that is shown in bold is a possible question. Here's another diagram for you to label if you wish. Okay. Each cat's different. Sometimes the cat doesn't look very pleasant, but they may actually be the best cat because they have all of the features. Here's the heart, and here's the superior vena cava running to here. Now, I can't show you the mammary, which should come off right about here, but somebody has already removed it, unfortunately. Look how the superior vena cava goes back on that side, and that side it forks, and the vessels that are forked to this one, these are the brachiocephalic. We're going to go out the brachiocephalic. Oh, now we come to a real intersection. Okay. I'm going to go ahead.
Both of those forks are brachiocephalic?
From here to here is brachiocephalic,
Mhm.
and from here to about here is brachiocephalic in the background. I would
Okay.
never ask you to identify the one in the back, but I will show it to you as we go along.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this intersection here, I want to go straight up all along the side of the neck. This is the external jugular. The internal jugular comes off, peels off, and goes more medially. This is the internal jugular. The labels are correct. Now let's go up the external jugular. Don't get very far. Here's a vessel going straight down. That's the transverse scapula. Go back to our intersection, continue on, and this is the subclavian until it branches, and it branches right here. This is not labeled, but I'll show it to you in another one in a moment. It is. This is the subscapular. The brachial doesn't show well. That's a piece of it right there, but it's not enough to even try to draw your attention. Everything that's labeled on this picture is correct. Okay, this one's got a little bit better coloring. Superior vena cava. This little guy here, usually they're bigger, but that's the mammary. Move forward. And this is brachiocephalic back here. This is brachiocephalic here. You can see the Y shape. So what the hell is that? That's a vertebral. That's a vertebral coming from the back, up and underneath actually, in this case, the vena cava. This is the brachiocephalic, as it says here. We'll come to this point and move along. This is the external jugular. The internal jugular is not showing on this specimen, but the transverse scapular is. Come over here to the subclavian, and now it's splitting beautifully into the subscapular, and the brachial. Now it's not labeled on this picture. I think that's probably because it's on the next picture. Here are the common carotids. I'm not worried that they're not labeled, and I'm showing it to you, because that will be labeled on another picture. And behind the heart here, behind the word brachiocephalic, you can see a large vessel going south. That's the descending thoracic aorta. Okay, so here's the same picture, and the things that weren't labeled, now they are. Here's the vertebral. Here's the subscapular. Here's the transverse scapular. Up higher, we have the maxillary, the facial or lingual facial, either is fine. And here's the transverse jugular. Don't know why this picture is so grainy, but it's still quite usable. Transverse jugular, linguofacial, maxillary, external jugular. This one's a bit blurry. Let's see what it's got. Here's the brachiocephalic over here. The subclavian is here. Now, let's look on the other side. Here comes an artery down. And see how the artery and vein run together. This is the subscapular artery. This is the subscapular vein. Once we pass the subscapular, everything is brachial, whether it's an artery or a vein. You will always be able to see the color. Blue, of course, for veins in this case. Here's the carotid artery. Here's the internal jugular here. The external jugular up here. Okay.
Charlie, is that the natural coloring for veins and arteries, or was there a dye injected for visualization purposes?
Colored latex.
Ah,
The latex is used because it can't cross the capillary beds. So it'll stay on one side or the other, the vein side or the artery side.
Charlie, before you leave that picture, is that the other common carotid behind the internal jugular vein?
Here?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to get that one right.
I have a question, Charlie.
Okay.
So when they draw your blood, how can they tell if it's a vein or an artery? Just by the placement, or like what happens if they draw blood from an artery instead?
You know, when I go to get my blood drawn, I don't think they can tell. They just keep jabbing, you know. Finally, I tell them, take it out of my hand, please. And then they can always find the veins running on the surface. I can't answer your question. I'm not a phlebotomist, and I don't want to be. So, can anybody answer a question?
Doesn't an artery have a, can't you feel like a pulse
Oh yeah,
or something?
but they usually take the blood out of the vein.
Yeah, I think that's just what I think. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
fortunately,
Sorry, off topic.
okay. Let's go to the next one. Here's the repeat maxillary, transverse, jugular. And here's the lingual, facial, external, jugular here. Okay, a little bit different colored photography, I think, for the most part. Draw it down. Huh. Okay, now, for a moment, you see something like this, and you say, I can't make heads or tails of it. You know, I give up. Well, don't give up. Here is the heart. Okay, coming out of it, the largest vessel coming out. It's got to be the superior vena cava. Okay, now we see there's a split going out to this arm, and a split that's going out to the other arm. These are the brachiocephalics. Here and here. Brachiocephalic, brachiocephalic. Okay. If we were to follow this upward, this is the external jugular vein. Now, problem. The external jugular vein runs straight in a living specimen, but when you dissect it, look how it can get contorted like this. It's like almost an intestine. So, with that being the case, some people don't understand. Well, straighten it out. Straighten it out mentally if you have to. But that's the only thing that can be is external jugular. And here, oh yeah, there it is. The transverse scapular. The subclavian, take that probe I talked to you about, put up against the transverse scapular, go down the external jugular and turn, touching the subclavian. Now the subclavian we saw before was kind of long, but this one ends right here because here's a branch. That's all you have of subclavian on this cat, because now this branch is the subscapular. And after the subscapular, everything is brachial. Okay. So if you don't look at all the rest of it, but you find these guys, it makes sense. Of course, they do have labels, and that is quite helpful right now. For tomorrow, I would appreciate it if you, well, I think you'll appreciate it too, if you read the portion, it's 2 pages long in the book, on fetal circulation. Okay. Each of the 3 editions of the book that you might be using, or other book that you might be using, is a little different in the way they label things. And I don't want you to end up being confused. And I think if you read it first, we can get through it very easily. And I don't know, it's kind of fun for me. So on fetal circulation, spell it F-E-T-A-L, circulation. Look in your index, find the 2 pages, and please read those. it definitely will have a diagram similar to this one, and you definitely want to take a look at it. Okay, and that'll help you out quite a bit. Okay, I think that the amount of material and the new terms and stuff that we've had today are enough to keep you in review for the evening. If you want to go ahead and take a look at the vessels below the diaphragm, that is the first thing I'll do tomorrow. Okay, even before I do a lecture. So I'm going to stop it there. Ask you if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can hang around for a moment. I see some new faces. I thank you. Okay.
Are these the fetal circulation pages you want us to review? It has a.
Look, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You have two diagrams. One's newborn and one is the fetus. Okay, and most of the books I think have the two diagrams on the same page. Doesn't matter. But that's the differences that we can do away with if you take a look at your book before tomorrow. Okay. Okay, then for today, we're going to stop here, and I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll finish up our 5th week with only 3 to go. We'll do some reviewing if you have questions for the L2. And don't forget, there are 4 practice quizzes for L2 for you to take a look at. Okay? So you can either exit or you can stay and ask the question you didn't want to ask in front of everybody else.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you,
Bye.
Charlie.
Bye.
Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charlie. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Hi Charlie, quick question. Will there be diagrams or pictures on the lecture test on Monday?
Of the heart,
Okay, all right. Thank you so
only the
much.
heart.
Okay, thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
Thank you, Charlie. Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Sorry, I apologize. I've been really sick, so my voice is in and out.
Oh, that's fine. How could you get sick?
I have no idea. I
Did
had
you-
a fever last Wednesday and I completely lost my voice the whole entire weekend, Friday through Monday. Yesterday it started to come back, so every day it's a little bit better. We'll see.
Okay, well, good luck. I didn't
I'm
know
taking over.
anybody get sick anymore because they're all masked up and vaccinated. You know.
I've heard that the flu has been going around because we didn't really have a flu season.
Well, I haven't heard that, but it could be. You know, flu virus also, and
Mhm.
if you're protecting yourself well from the coronavirus, you ought to be protecting yourself at the same time from the flu. I hope you haven't got it, or if you do, get it over with quickly.
I had COVID in January, so I have antibodies, so I'm good.
Good.
But thank you. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
Bye, Charlie. Have a good night.
Okay. Hey, Jessica,
Yes,
you work over at Mission?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. What have you heard, or that you'll share about this crazy slowdown Providence is having?
About with like patients or
Yeah, cutting the number of patients the doctor can see to 3 a day, then upping it finally to 5, and slowly bringing it back, supposedly while they adjust their software program or something.
oh yeah, we switched from Meditech to Epic. And so I think that's probably why they cut down a couple patients for the doctors. But I mean, as far as I know, we're up and running. They gave us super users that were like
Yeah.
just on the units with us just to make sure everything went smoothly. So, but that was weeks ago. I mean, as far as I know, everything should be back and up and running.
Well, okay, I'll give it a try again.
Yeah, come see us.
Oh, I'm all, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
So, okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
bye bye.
All right, bye.